There is a comforting idea, but it's a lie. That discipline is something some people are born with and others simply lack. This idea removes responsibility, but it destroys any real chance of change. The truth is simpler and harsher at the same time. Discipline is not a trait, it is a system. And people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they try to build complex behavior using primitive tools. A human being does not act based on what they know, but based on what they feel and what surrounds them. And this is where the problem begins. Most people start well: motivation, strong decisions, big promises. But after a few days or a few weeks, everything fades. Not because the goal is too hard, but because the method was wrong from the beginning. There is a common illusion that willpower is the foundation. But if that were true, everyone who decided to change would have already changed. Willpower is a limited resource. It weakens with fatigue, fluctuates with mood, and collapses under pressure. And this is something behavioral science has made clear. Humans are not as rational as they think. They're shaped by environment, habits, and repetition more than anything else. In Atomic Habits, a simple but profound idea is introduced. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This explains everything. A person wants to work out, but lives in an environment full of distractions, with no schedule, poor sleep, and no preparation. Is the problem willpower, or is it the system? Most of the time, the answer is obvious, just uncomfortable to admit. Take a simple example. Someone decides to wake up early. On day 1, they succeed. On day 2, they struggle. On day 3, they fail. They think they are lazy, but the reality is deeper. They are trying to change an outcome without changing the inputs. They sleep late. They use their phone before bed. There is no real reason to wake up, and no system supports the decision. Then they're surprised the result doesn't change. This is not a failure of willpower. This is a failure of design. In The Power of Habit, behavior is explained as a loop: cue, routine, reward. And this loop runs automatically. In other words, you are not choosing most of your actions. You are simply repeating what you have been conditioned to do. The person who checks their phone every 5 minutes is not doing it consciously. Their brain learned that boredom is the cue and the phone is the solution. So the real question becomes, how do you build discipline when your brain is working against you? The answer is not resistance, it is reprogramming. And that requires a completely different approach. Real discipline does not come from constant struggle. It comes from reducing the need to struggle. This is where environment becomes critical. In The Power of Habit, one idea is emphasized repeatedly: environment is stronger than willpower. If your phone is next to you, you will use it. If unhealthy food is visible, you will eat it. If work is difficult and there are easier alternatives, you will choose the easier path. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. The brain is designed to conserve energy, not to achieve goals. So one of the most important rules is this: do not rely on self-control. Design your environment so the right behavior becomes the easiest option. Instead of saying, "I will resist my phone," move it away. Instead of saying, "I will force myself to work out," make the workout extremely simple at the beginning. Instead of trying to become perfect, make failure harder than success. This is not a trick. This is behavioral engineering. But there is another deeper problem: emotions. Emotions are the silent enemy of discipline. People don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they don't feel like doing it. And here lies the contradiction. Discipline requires action, even when there is no desire. And that goes against human nature. In deep work, the ability to focus deeply is discussed. But the real issue is not ability, it is tolerance. Modern humans are addicted to ease. Notifications, short videos, fast content. Everything is designed to deliver instant reward.
Then suddenly, you're expected to sit for hours and focus on something difficult. This is not a small challenge. It is a neurological conflict. This is where real discipline shows up, the ability to tolerate boredom. Not strength, but patience. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do what is necessary, even if it is not comfortable." It sounds simple, but it captures the essence of discipline. But most people make a critical mistake. They try to change everything at once. This is fatal. The brain resists large, sudden changes. It pushes back. This is why the idea of 1% improvement matters. Instead of changing everything, change one thing. Something so small it feels almost meaningless, but sustainable. Someone who wants to read doesn't start with a full book. They start with one page. Someone who wants to work out doesn't start with an hour. They start with 5 minutes. The goal is not results. The goal is identity. And here is a powerful idea. Discipline is not what you do. It is who you become.
In Atomic Habits, behavior is described as a reflection of identity. A person who sees themselves as someone who trains will act differently. A person who sees themselves as lazy will prove that to themselves daily. And this is the core issue. People try to change actions without changing identity. So how does identity change? Not through words, but through evidence. Every time you perform a small, correct action, you are proving something to yourself. Not once, but repeatedly. And this takes time. This is where the real difficulty appears. Discipline is boring. There is no excitement, no dramatic moment, just quiet, consistent repetition. And the brain hates that. In Can't Hurt Me, there is an example of someone who chose to confront reality fully, not through emotion, but through action. The core message was clear. Do not trust your feelings, especially when they are weak. Feelings change. Actions remain. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Many people don't fail because the task is hard. They fail because they imagine it to be hard. Then they avoid it, and that avoidance becomes a habit. Which leads to another important point. Discipline is not about being strong all the time. It is about reducing the number of decisions. Every decision consumes energy, and the more decisions you make, the more likely you are to fail. That's why disciplined people don't rely on constant thinking. They rely on systems. Same sleep time, same work time, same routine. Not because they are rigid, but because they are efficient. Routine frees the mind. Instead of asking, "Should I do this today?" the answer becomes, "This is what I do." And that changes everything. But there is something often misunderstood. Discipline is not self-punishment. Many people believe discipline means constant pressure. This is wrong. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance leads to collapse. Real discipline includes flexibility. If you fail one day, you continue. If you make a mistake, you don't punish yourself. A simple rule: never fail twice. A bad day is normal. A bad week is a system. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The problem is most people don't have a clear why. Vague goals, unclear desires, no real meaning. And that makes discipline fragile. Purpose gives direction, systems give consistency. Without both, there is no progress. Consider another example. Someone wants to learn a skill. They start with enthusiasm. They watch videos, read, plan, but they don't practice. Why? Because learning gives a sense of progress without real effort. It's an illusion. The brain confuses preparation with achievement, but in reality, nothing changes until action begins. So a fundamental rule is this: start before you feel ready. Perfection is the enemy of discipline. The person who waits for the perfect moment will never start. Discipline is not a moment, it is a lifestyle, not a decision, but a pattern. And over time, something interesting happens. What was once difficult becomes normal. What once required effort becomes automatic. That is the goal. Not to force yourself, but to live in a way where force is no longer needed. In the end,
Discipline is not a test of strength, it is a test of understanding. Understanding how the mind works, how habits form, how environment shapes behavior, how emotions deceive you. People don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they use the wrong approach. They fight themselves instead of understanding themselves. If there is one idea to remember, it is this. Do not try to become a disciplined person. Build a system where discipline is the outcome. Because the truth most people avoid, you will not become better overnight, but you can become slightly better every single day. And that is enough. Marcus Aurelius once wrote to himself, "Do not waste what remains of your life worrying about others. Do what is yours to do." That sentence was not meant for others. It was a reminder to the self. And that is the essence of discipline, to do what must be done, regardless of how you feel. Not because you are strong, but because you chose to live differently. And that difference starts there.